Since its modest debut,
Video and sound are okay, but the snowflakes are annoying.
the House of Rogan has slowly become the most unlikely yet powerful player in media today.
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
Shout out to Joe Rogan.
The Dems need to find their Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan has changed comedy.
Howard Stern went after Joe Rogan.
The platform has pulled Neil Young's music after he demanded that Spotify choose between him and podcast host Joe Rogan.
The mighty and powerful Joe Rogan.
You were going to expose me to Rogan and that I should get a lawyer.
Joe Rogan, by the way, I think single-handedly destroyed his career.
I want to talk Rogan, man.
And the Joe Rogan Experience has become the most listened to and most influential podcast on earth.
Joe Rogan is a media phenomenon. In 2019, his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, was reportedly downloaded 190 million times in a month.
Whether intentional or not, it has shaped modern culture more than anything else in our lifetime. The story of the House of Rogan is the story of a peasant who became a gladiator, the gladiator who became a jester, the jester who became a king,
This benevolent king.
and the king who created other kings.
Basically said I won him the election.
Cold plunges, DMT, ayahuasca, sensory deprivation tanks, weird diets, UFOs, fake moon landings, sauna therapy, kettlebells, jujitsu, elk meat, and power. The power to move nations. This series isn't about podcasting, it's about all of us. The nature of civilization, money, influence, religion, kings, courtiers, sycophants, allies.
If Joe Rogan pointed to some guy and said, you got to go fight that guy right now, I'd be like, all right, I got to go fight that guy.
Enemies.
You weren't one of the guys that, rented out space in Joe's ass.
And the American empire. Where we came from, how we got here, and where we are going.
It's nothing but a transfer of wealth from the young to the old.
The story of the rise of kings is one that has repeated itself in different forms throughout history. Joe Rogan's podcast isn't just a platform, it's a kingdom, a domain where power is wielded through influence, and influence is wielded through followers. We need to figure out how this all happened. Where did this unlikely king of podcasting even come from? How did he get here? Why does he act the way he acts? Every king has an origin story, and we're going to explain all of that. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the first episode of the story of the House of Rogan.
We were always moving around a lot. We moved across the country from New Jersey to San Francisco, and then we lived there for a while, and then we moved to Florida.
The story of the rise of Rogan is modern American myth-making at its finest. Born into a family of nomads, young Joe Rogan's early life was formed in the crucible of the American working class.
Always moving to new schools, always dealing with new kids, and I wasn't big, and I didn't know how to fight, and I got picked on, and I didn't like it. And then we moved to Boston.
Why do you hate Boston? Because they racist. That's why.
The city of Boston was known for many things, but mostly it was known for the toughness of its working-class citizenry, and is ironically the home of Harvard College, the final boarding school for the children of America's ruling class elites before they go off to rule the world. But none of those princes and princesses of Harvard could have predicted that just outside the campus walls, the unruly working-class mongrels of the city had created a culture where weakness was intolerable, and in that mongrel fire, a peasant would one day rise to become a king.
Everybody our age was like a latchkey kid. And most of the time, we're around other fucking savages our age. And with my friends, it was always, who's the sickest fuck? Yeah. Oh, Mike's a sick fuck. Oh, Steve's the sickest fuck. He doesn't give a fuck. He's crazy. And there was like a value in that because everybody was scared. That was really at the bottom line of it. We're all young men. And we're on our way to becoming adults, and no one knows what the fuck they're gonna do. And we have a few friends that have graduated high school, and they're losers now, and like, shit, that might be me. Like, that was the big cloud that was always hanging over everybody's head. What are you doing after high school? What are you doing after high school? And it was like this impending date of doom that was coming up. So everybody was scared all the time.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted to be a man. They wanted to prove themselves. They wanted to be something special, and no one felt special. Everybody felt like a fucking loser. We're all like waiting to become an adult so you could get a job like all these other people you knew that were around you, or escape, or figure out a way to escape.
Being small in stature, Joe felt immense physical danger in this environment and set out to build himself into a warrior.
Kids would pick on me, and I didn't know how to fight, and it drove me crazy. So I decided to learn martial arts. Then it became my whole life. 15 is when I went crazy. So from 15 on, that's all I did every day.
He trained relentlessly in the deadly art of Taekwondo, and he lifted heavy irons to build his muscles, eventually becoming a champion gladiator. It was during this time that an incident occurred at a community college classroom that would first spark something in Joe. Though untrained in the art of speech and debate, he managed to best his college professor and humiliate him in front of the other students.
I mocked him in class. I brought up something that was contrary to what he was teaching, and he got pissed at me. He got really pissed at me, and he said, "You're undermining my class," and this. I had a conversation with him afterwards because I had to talk to him in order to get back in the class. He kicked me out of the class. In interrupting the class, you showed yourself to be more articulate and more intelligent than you ever showed ever in the entire semester. So you're totally half-assing everything you do. Like your writing, everything, paper you turn in, every test you do, every time I call upon you for a question, totally half-assed that. But when you wanted to correct me on something, all of a sudden you knew all the words, you knew how to form the sentence correctly, you knew how to say it with the right impact. He's like, your focus is off. I was like, God damn, that dude's on the money. And I realized, I'm like, yeah, so I'm not stupid, right? I can't listen.
I can't do it their way. I got to do it my way.
I knew that I could not exist in a regular job. I didn't have it, whatever it was.
Yeah, it's a thing. When you know you don't have it, it's kind of scary. Like, oh no, I'm not going to have a straight life. Oh no, what am I going to do?
It was like it was radioactive. Like I would take construction jobs and it was like I was being poisoned.
Yeah.
You know, it was like literally like I was getting radiation.
Yeah, you feel like you're dying.
Then later, during his Gladiator tournaments, young Joe realized that his teacher had been correct and that he possessed a secret power. He possessed a magical talent for incantation. The brutish Gladiator had the power to bring people joy and comfort with nothing but his voice. The spells he conjured not only brought joy, but also banished fear from his fellow gladiators. And his gladiator comrades also realized this and encouraged him to abandon the arena of physical combat and enter the similarly hostile domain of stand-up comedy.
I got talked into doing stand-up by my friends from martial arts. I would be the guy who would make everybody laugh because it was scary. I was just trying to lighten up the mood.
Wow.
And that's how I got into stand-up. He told me I should be a comedian.
Improv class or?
Like literally grabbed me by my shoulders and said, you should be a comedian. From then on, I'd kind of like locked into this thing where I'm just going to do what I like and fuck what everybody says because everybody's giving me advice to do this and advice to do that, and it never seems to be what I want to do.
After suffering a crushing defeat, he set off into the unknown on a new quest, one that even he couldn't have predicted. Rogan was told news of a new breed of shaman, a preacher turned jester, gaining followers in the kingdom of stand-up comedy.
This is love. Come on. Come on. I'm not like the others. No, this is new love. Come on, trust me.
It's hard for people to understand how revolutionary that guy was. Because when I was a kid, he was the first guy that ever made me think about comedy. Like that I could do comedy. He changed comedy. He really did, because there was no comedy like that before Kinnison came around. He was a different kind of comedy. He had that charisma of being this tent revival preacher.
Yes.
Before I was your little son, before I was your baby, your dependent, I was a free spirit in the next stage of life. I walked in the cosmos, not imprisoned by a body of flesh, but free in a body of light. I knew all things, there were no questions, only answers, no weaknesses, only strength. I was light, I was truth, I was a spiritual being, I was a god, but you had to fuck.
I don't know about you, but when I woke up this morning, somebody told me you don't have to lose, you don't have to be defeated, you can change your life. You know what I'm saying? You're healed. Oh yeah, guys would see and stuff just from the excitement. I think I see something's going on here. You know,
it is almost hypnosis, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
Why'd you give that up? I mean,
well...
The news of this new shaman was like an omen for young Rogan. He had finally found another one like him, a man who had the power to move the masses with simply his voice.
I thought it was the door to love, it was the door to hell! Oh!
Rogan followed the new shaman into the unknown kingdom of stand-up comedy, determined to carve out his own group of followers. Of all the advantages in life, the advantage of good timing might be the best to describe Rogan's life from this point on, as he had a knack for being in the exact right place at the exact right time, doing the exact right thing. In this case, he caught the tail end of the comedy boom of the 1980s, and just like a young King Arthur wrapping his hand around the sword and the stone, a young Joe Rogan wrapped his hand around a microphone and unlocked his true destiny to become a king that the world didn't know that they were missing, by catching the first in a series of cultural waves that would propel him into the mainstream consciousness. The comedy boom of the 1980s was a special time in history and created many stars. And for those comedians with ambition, there was a clear path to the promised land of fame and fortune. That path led directly to the throne of an old king who presided over the comedy landscape and had the power to take comedy squires and turn them into royalty.
Here's Johnny!
In the 70s and 80s, the undisputed king of the night was Johnny Carson. As host of The Tonight Show, King Carson held sway over a captive American audience who only had 3 channels to choose from, and only one late-night show. During the reign of Carson, the king of the night would bring an endless string of gestures to his subjects. If they failed to impress, they were never asked back. If they succeeded in moving him and his audience, his approval meant everything.
It was a testing ground. It was a firing range. And I remember being nervous as hell.
The Johnny Carson show used to be at one point in time. Yeah. There's no show like that where everybody watches The Tonight Show.
Yeah. 30 million a night, Carson, and then I guess when he signed off, 60 million on the night he signed off.
And you would sit on the couch next to Johnny. You were in, man. Oh. You made it. You were royalty. You were adorned. You were knighted.
And like the Roman emperors in the Colosseum, a simple hand gesture could mean the difference between fame and fortune or going back to the clubs to try to fight your way back into his good graces.
Johnny would watch you do your performance, and then if he deemed it so worthy, he brought you over to the couch.
The first level is this.
The okay symbol.
You get the okay.
Right.
Which is, I got that, and that was still the greatest moment of my life.
Right.
Any one of these from Johnny was one of the greatest things in my career.
And then 4 or 5 shows later, then they let you on the couch.
He goes like this, and I go, "Who, me?" And he goes, "Yeah, you." And I'm like, oh, no, nobody gets called over for the Tonight Show. That's a big thing. It's like a religious experience. And then after that, my career was made.
You're funny as hell.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
You really are.
Carson continued to reign supreme over the late-night landscape, anointing the next stars in the world of stand-up comedy.
It was the stamp of approval. It was Johnny Carson says, "You're funny." He changed my life.
You jump up a notch in the business as far as working, your income tripled.
There's just not that many moments of life that are that definitive of a before and an after life.
The specter and influence of Johnny Carson would foreshadow the future influence of the Joe Rogan podcast and demonstrated an early vision of how an individual can capture the attention of an audience and then use that influence as a tastemaker of the highest order. As King Carson abdicated his throne, the kingdom of the night was split between 2 heirs, princes of the night who had once been friends and brothers in arms. Upon the passing of the king, became rivals for the throne of the night, with a new prince emerging after them and a queen of the day also emerging. While Joe never made it to the court of King Carson, he did make it to the court of his heirs, King Leno.
Welcome, Joe Rogan, Joe!
And Prince Conan.
Joe Rogan.
These new royals became stewards of influence, and their shows became stages for a parade of courtiers to come and try to advance in the big game. Many types of courtiers petitioned these media royals to try to gain their favor in order to win their audiences for themselves. And of course, the jesters were no different. While many comedians struggled for years, Rogan's rise was relatively swift, a combination of timing, talent, and contrast. At the time he started, there were no jocks in the realm of stand-up comedy. Joe broke this mold and was able to stand out. His comedy reflected his brutish nature, a contrast from the neurotic soy boy jesters of the era. He even gained the attention of the reigning king of the air, Howard Stern. In a surreal moment where the past and the future converged, the present king and the future king met for the first time on Stern's show, neither one realizing the significance of the moment
One of the best bits we've played on the radio in a long time is a bit by Joe Rogan, who stopped by today. Great comedian, Joe Rogan. Good to meet you, Joe. Finally have you on the show.
What's happening, man?
How you doing?
This is an honor.
That motherfucker opened the door for all of us. All of us. For me, 100%.
Yeah.
And we think about this today in terms of like what we get away with on podcasts. For total freedom. And I think a lot of that was open. That door was open because of Howard Stern. Before Howard Stern, people have to realize there was no one like that. He opened the door for podcasts, for sure.
Yeah.
All these outrageous people doing podcasts, he made the roadmap.
It was clear that this plebeian mongrel from the far lands of Massachusetts had already ascended far past anything that anyone could have predicted. But there was more climbing to be done, and more kingdoms awaited. After rising through the kingdom of comedy, the traditional path for a comedian was to get cast on a sitcom, as that was where the real treasure was hidden. Television being one of the few ways that a comedian could scale their talent to a wide audience. Stand-up comedy was so hot at the time that the kings of Hollywood paid fortunes to comedians in the form of development deals. A development deal meant that the kings of Hollywood had enough faith in you based on your stand-up that they were willing to pay you in advance and then try to put you on projects, which as an on-screen talent is a way better position to be in than the thousands of actors with no leverage trying to work their way through the humiliating audition process.
If you're an actor and you get on a sitcom, it is the greatest job in show business because you're going to get a steady check. You're going to do 24, maybe 26 episodes a year. You're making more money than you've ever made your whole life.
In an unprecedented stroke of luck or talent or whatever you want to call it, he was cast on a sitcom on his very first audition. Not his first audition for a sitcom, his first audition, period. An unheard of feat.
The first day on the set of News Radio, I had zero acting.
How'd you get it?
The whole thing's crazy. I did MTV Half-Hour Comedy Hour. I got a development deal out of nowhere.
Wow.
For MTV.
That's big.
And then my manager started saying, it was very little money. It was like $500 and they were going to lock me up for like 3 years. It was crazy low money. It was so stupid. They had decided they were going to lock people up to deals now because Leary got famous off that. And then he took off and then kind of went away from MTV.
I see.
So my manager said, I have an idea. And so he decided to send my MTV tape out to all these studios and say, this guy's about to sign a development deal for MTV, locked up, but he's still available. So then I started getting all these phone, like people would call my apartment. I was at home like, hello? And like, hi, this is blah, blah, blah from Universal. You know, we want to get you on a plane right now to Los Angeles. I was like, what?
Wow.
So I called my manager. I called Sussy and I was like, hey, dude, these fucking people are calling my apartment. He goes, don't answer your phone. Just leave it all to me. And so within like 3 weeks, I had this crazy deal for like $150,000, which is the most money I'd ever even heard of in my life. And all of a sudden, I was in Hollywood, like out of nowhere. And the moment I got that check, I remember feeling light. And I remember thinking immediately, oh, this is the key. Get to that place where you're not worried about bills, because that hanging over your head causes stress that ruins lives. It ruins people. I had to get acting lessons, so I took a few acting lessons. I hated it. I was like, this is gross. And then, but I knew how to just pretend. I'm like, I pretend on stage. I'll just pretend. Like, sitcom acting is pretty easy.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, I'm on this sitcom. You know, I was making like $20,000 a week. I was like, this is amazing.
That's fucking big,
I'm crazy. I was like, I'm rich. And so then I got another development deal. And then, so I'd done 2 auditions in my entire life. One of them was Hardball, got that show. The other one was News Radio, I got that show.
That's fucking crazy.
Made no sense. Made no sense.
News Radio ran for several seasons, another unheard of feat. Most actors try for years to land a role in a sitcom without success, but being a stand-up comedian with a development deal gave Joe Rogan both leverage and cachet in the sitcom world. It's worth noting that for his role on News Radio, he replaced another stand-up comedian, Ray Romano. It's also worth noting that the cast of the show had Andy Dick, another stand-up comic, as well as Dave Foley and Phil Hartman, 2 sketch comedy players. Call it luck, call it fate, call it timing. The experience gave him financial freedom and a moderate amount of fame, but also exposed him to the ruthless unwritten rules of the strange kingdom of Hollywood. The murder of his comrade and co-star Phil Hartman leaving a scar on his soul that would last a lifetime, and forever leave him skeptical of the strange kings of Hollywood and the darkness behind the glamour.
I hated LA. I hated being around actors. You couldn't joke around with them. They were all so sensitive.
Right.
Everyone was on pills. They were all on antidepressants. I was like,
Wow.
get me out of here. I can't deal with it. I want to go back to comics. A morally corrupt business, the way they ran the business. That's how it was pay to play.
Embittered by his experience with the corrupt, degenerate nature of traditional Hollywood, his next quest would align more with his own brutish nature. As the host of Fear Factor, he served as the master of ceremonies of a game show, seemingly straight out of the imagination of Caligula himself.
I'm Joe Rogan. This is Fear Factor.
On the show, regular working-class people would compete in a grotesque series of games meant to expose them to the worst fears imaginable, all for the entertainment of the plebeian masses.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
A pillar of mainstream spectacle, Joe did his job admirably, though impassionately, and in doing so gave him a level of wealth and fame to live comfortably.
Ever since I got that Fear Factor money, I got loose. That Fear Factor money makes you loose. People that I work with, like all the guys behind the scene, super, super nice guys, and I'm still friends with to this day. So there was a lot of fun involved, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. It was just money.
While Joe's journey into the land of television proved successful, the old castle, which he had once called home, had spawned a demon that was terrorizing his comrades in the kingdom of stand-up comedy.
When I come to a comedy club, you better run, bitch. You better get the fuck off stage. Because if anything you say is even remotely funny, I'm gonna make it mine.
When he's there, we flash the light so that people know that he's in the audience so you don't do your best shit.
Equally as bad was him bumping people back in the 90s, so...
I would just do crowd work, and then Tommy would get mad at me all the time. Why don't you do your set? I'm not gonna do my set in front of that guy.
Because he's a notorious joke thief, and there were comics, a lot of my good buddies would not go on stage if he was in the room.
People didn't even show up because they knew that they wouldn't be able to get up.
With Mencia, the real problem was like he was profiting off of this and destroying other comedians' careers.
Every hero needs a villain, and every knight needs a dragon to slay. Like Beowulf confronting Grendel, the only one who was brave enough to slay the demon Mencia was Joe Rogan.
Joe puts out that montage video of Mencia stealing.
Bring up Kurt Fox. I go, he's a writer for Carlos Mencia's show, because that's what we called him. We used to call him Mencia. Kurt Fox goes on stage, and Mencia is in the back of the room. He comes onto the stage, takes the microphone away from Kurt Fox, because this was in the middle of he was on the mind of Mencia, his career was booming, he was selling out these big arenas, and he was a big star. And he goes, yeah, he talks a lot of shit, but he doesn't have the balls to say that shit to my face. So I just walked right onto the stage.
Why would it matter to you? Why the fuck would it matter? Why would it matter to you? Why would it matter to you? No, that's just showing to you that your interest in me is fucking retarded. No, not from your fucking friends. Bullshit. Fucking Joe, bro. That's not why. Because, you know what? Lopez at me. Give me a hug. What's up? You want me to tell you what George Lopez did? Shut you up and shut up. Give me a hug. I'll tell you what George Lopez did since you want to hear it. They're jealous because you fat fuck. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I'm jealous of anybody. It's not gonna be a guy who steals material. You guys don't know me. Mexican. Why don't you tell the truth about you being half German? Does anybody know? You know his name? You know his real name is Men Wholeness. Is that my real name? Carlos Mencia. That's a fake name. Not Ned. Is your name not there? Yes, it is. But everybody knows that.
You probably don't even think you steal jokes. You're probably like O.J. Simpson. You're probably running around thinking you didn't do it. I don't. You probably are. You're probably crazy. Are you? Maybe I am. What is it? I don't know. What is it? My shit is out there. Do you not know you steal? My shit is out there. Do you not know you steal? Yeah, of course I don't fucking steal. I don't sit around. Do you not know you steal? Do you know how hard it is? Do you know how hard people work to write shit? Of course I do. You don't, motherfucker.
The only way to stop him from doing that was to make a video like this.
And then an hour later, I get a call from Tommy. Tell me that I'm banned. I go, I just got off the phone with Mitzi. I go, if Mitzi gave me a spot. I go, she gave me a spot. Oh, Mitzi didn't know. She doesn't understand. She doesn't understand what the problem is. I go, if you choose that path. I go, I'm not coming back.
But why didn't you get him banned?
I couldn't. I wasn't big enough. My stand-up career hadn't taken off the way his had. I wasn't big, and I didn't know how to fight, and I got picked on, and I didn't like it. So I said, I want to figure out how to fight.
He used all his power he could to try to squash Joe.
It's very Shakespearean in a very weird way. There's some betrayal there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of drama.
My fucking agent stumped me.
Over that?
Oh, yeah. Over that. Yeah, I was with Gersh. They dropped me.
The Carlos Mencia incident became a pivotal moment, not just for Joe, but for the entire comedy community. He became known as the man who stopped Carlos Mencia's reign of terror and became a hero to his fellow comedians.
He stood for what was good.
You had every comic in the country just cheering your fucking name, man. Go get him, Joe.
And what happened? What was the aftermath?
He's gone.
Joe Rogan, by the way, I think single-handedly destroyed his career.
That's the aftermath. I mean, where is he? I mean, you can still find him if you go looking. You can find him at a comedy club somewhere. But no one takes him seriously as an artist anymore.
You know, in a lot of ways he deserves it, because that's what he did. That was his legacy. That's what he did. He stole material from comedians and created a career off of the back of other people's work.
If Ari and I look positively giddy this morning, it's because we spent last night rewatching the South Park episode where Carlos Mencia gets beaten to death with a baseball bat.
He was now their champion, their protector, the man that they would follow, because he was the only one brave enough to stop Carlos. This was the moment that took Joe Rogan from media personality to hero of stand-up comedy. But just as his battle with Carlos was winding down, a new kingdom was being born on the fringes of society, and Joe Rogan couldn't resist its allure.
What's Joe Rogan's dream?
What's Joe Rogan's dream?
Joe Rogan, Dana White. What's Dana White's dream?
Did you just think I was Joe Rogan?
I totally did.
She just called me fucking Joe Rogan. You thought I was fucking Joe Rogan?
Yeah, I thought you were Joe Rogan.
I was bald before Joe was ever bald. Okay?
I know.
Just did a 2-hour fucking podcast. I flew here from Vegas, and she thought she was interviewing Joe Rogan.
Jesus.
It is an honor to welcome back to the broadcast team here on the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the host of NBC's Fear Factor, Joe Rogan.
I was just a fan. I started at UFC 12. Mark the Hammer Coleman beat Dan Severn for the UFC heavyweight title.
Just as the comedians of the 70s and 80s fought their way through local comedy clubs for the chance to show their skills in front of the king of the night, the UFC was not a metaphoric gladiator arena. It was the real thing, that he had to be part of it.
Are you not entertained?
Let's go to Joe Rogan.
Thanks, Bruce. I'm back here right now backstage. I'll be interviewing the fighters as they come out of the octagon, and I'll also be previewing the fights, the final fights in each weight division. I'll be talking to the fighters. We'll find out who's injured, who's going to be able to continue, and who's going to go in if we need an alternate. Anything we need to know, as soon as I find out, you'll know. Back to you guys.
The plug, the thing that you're here to promote tonight, besides News Radio, is the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And I'm curious about that, because you're an actor on a sitcom. Are you fighting in an Ultimate Fighting Championship?
No, I just interview the fighters.
And that's something you do regularly? Because you're a fighter yourself, aren't you?
Well, I was, at one point in time. Now I'm just a participant in the, this interview dude.
Right.
It's fun, man. It's a freak show. It's wild. It's great.
Because Ultimate Fighting, explain this to people that don't know. Ultimate Fighting, you can do whatever you want.
Not anymore. No, it's not exactly that way.
Attaching himself to the UFC became the third wave that Joe hit at the exact right time, as an early advocate and default expert.
The only reason why I do MMA commentary is because I'm very interested in it, for real. I don't have to manufacture it. I'm very interested. So I think
you love
that's
going in there after the fight, and they're sweating all over you, they're slopping all over you. You're
they
beautiful.
bleed on me.
They're bleeding.
Sometimes their noses
Does that bother you a little bit? Yeah,
no.
As the UFC rose, so did Joe. His association with the UFC became a perfect partnership where both parties benefited and created a virtuous cycle. Though he was never able to gain favor with the king of the night, Johnny Carson, he was now a close ally and partner of the king of gladiators, Dana White. While Joe was not yet a king himself, he was now a prince of gladiators under King Dana.
The impact that Joe Rogan has had and continues to have on this sport is immeasurable. He's the biggest podcaster in the world, and he is on the UFC pay-per-views, 14 times a year, and he's always talking about the sport. It's immeasurable what this guy has done for this company and the sport. Why would you go after the Fear Factor guy to be such a key component to not only the company, but to the sport? I saw it.
Joe Rogan was one of the best moves that I made early on in building this company. There were a few key people that I believe helped get us to where we are today, and Joe Rogan is absolutely positively one of those people.
Where would you be if you didn't do the UFC stuff? Would you have this show, do you think?
Yeah, I would still be doing it for sure. Yeah.
Would it be at the same level?
I don't know.
First of all, you love UFC.
I love it, yeah.
You love the fights. I mean, I watch
yeah.
you are loving it. They could pay you nothing. It'd be very...
They didn't pay me anything for the first 13 shows. I did it for free. I became friends with Dana, and my position was, you're going to give me the best seat in the house. I get to sit cage side for the fights. Like, I'll do it. I always knew that it was unbelievably entertaining, but I just didn't know if maybe I was crazy. Maybe I loved it because I've had this long history of being involved in martial arts, and maybe like other people who just think it's too violent.
Joe Rogan has been very loyal to me, and I am very loyal to Joe Rogan.
Like King Arthur's sword, like Thor's hammer, like Captain America's shield, Joe Rogan with a microphone had once again proved to be a magical combination that translated into massive success. However, a new wave was swelling, and Joe Rogan was about to catch that wave once again at the perfect time.
And this is what the front of it looks like. Boom. That's iPod. I happen to have one right here in my pocket, matter of fact. There it is, right there. So, this amazing little device holds 1,000 songs, and it goes right in my pocket. You can take your whole music library with you right in your pocket. Never before possible. So that's iPod.
People over the age of 12 have asked the ninja, what is podcasting? Right now, you've got stuff out there like TV, which is like a piece of wood. It's not even as interesting as watching grass grow. It's as interesting as watching wood be wood. Podcasting is active. Brass tacks. On one end, you got the kid. Let's call him Jason. And he's bored. And he's sitting there going, what's cool, dude? Yes, because that's the way kids talk right now. Jason is a whale, and he's swimming around the internet. And he's in a whole pod of whales. That's where the term comes from. And they're looking to eat stuff. And the content on the internet is the brine. And it's just like, okay, there's another shrimp, and there's another stupid one video, and there's a guy yelling at a brick wall. That's interesting. And then, oh, look, there's Eva Longoria juggling a chainsaw. But then he comes across us, a podcast, every week, consistent content coming at him like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then if I kept doing that, you'd see it's on a regular basis. I go, yeah. But it's consistently coming at him like an apple pie. And if you're a whale and all you've ever eaten is shrimp, and then somebody gives you an apple pie, you're like, holy smokes, this is delicious. And then when you find out that there's a factory that produces apple pies every week, then those whales just line up outside the factory, and then we feed them apple pie. That's the simplest way to explain it.
Podcast this is a weird art form, and it almost seems like, it sounds silly, but it almost seems like something that chose me rather than I chose it. I think of that all the time in some strange way. It's like I'm showing up as like an antenna, and I just plug in and twist on, and then I take in the thing and I put it together, and I'm like a passenger of this weird ride.
Finally, after climbing the ranks of many kingdoms, from taekwondo to stand-up comedy to television sitcoms, Joe Rogan had arrived at his final destination. Just like America became the home of the undervalued and underestimated peasant class of Europe, podcasting and social media was a wide-open new land ripe for the taking. As the aristocracy of old Hollywood was battling it out for a smaller and smaller piece of the old media landscape, Joe Rogan began carving out his kingdom in the new lands of social media. Anyone who grew up working class knows that there are thousands of Joe Rogans out there. These types of guys are into working out, smoking weed, conspiracy theories.
I don't think we went to the moon.
Maybe one or two other things. They usually work jobs in the trades, have hot girlfriends, and tend to have an unreasonable amount of irrational confidence. Joe was the perfect avatar for working class Joes all over the world, unlocking a massive audience that the soy boy theater kids of old Hollywood had been overlooking for decades. These kingdoms began to split and weaken. Since the end of the reign of King Carson, the kings and queens of old media had spent decades battling each other for his audience. And just like when the Roman Empire collapsed and became split into multiple smaller fiefdoms, the kingdom of the night, which had once been strong and unified under Carson, was now split among a succession of weaker and weaker kings. And just as the queen of the day stepped down from her throne, a series of successors battled each other for her kingdom, with the winner emerging victorious, and then falling spectacularly. After the downfall of Queen Ellen, just like the kingdom of the night, the kingdom of the day became split between many factions, with none of them able to claim the throne. And the new kingdoms of social media began to rise, and like the invention of America itself, became the place for former peasants to scrape their way to fame and fortune. Suddenly, the overlooked and undervalued working-class peasantry were able to compete with established institutional media giants, as distribution of media, which used to be a walled garden, was now free and open to anyone with ambition, grit, and more than a small amount of charisma and luck. And there was one former peasant who was perfectly positioned for this transition. In the early days of podcasting, the politics of podcasting mirrored the politics of nation-states, a combination of diplomacy and warfare. Kevin Smith, Mark Maron, Adam Carolla, and Joe Rogan were the first players in the game. Adam Carolla and Kevin Smith went to war. Joe Rogan and Mark Maron went to war, each player jockeying for position in this new unclaimed land of podcasting. As Smith, Carolla, and Maron slowly faded, Joe kept growing and growing in listeners and in influence. And after years of steady output, Joe Rogan with a microphone became the undisputed king of this new land of podcasting. Just as before him there were kingdoms of the night, the day, and the air, he consolidated all of these kingdoms together by combining video and audio on social media and became the king of attention. And suddenly he was being treated with the same reverence as the former king of attention, Johnny Carson.
It's bigger to do Rogan podcast or Maron or say the top 5 than it is to do a Tonight Show set.
Now it is.
Yeah, because I go all over and people go, man, I heard you on such and such.
Is the Rogan bump
The Rogan
real?
bump's insane. You know what I mean?
Massive.
Massive. If he thinks you're funny, he'll help you.
Not only did he like change my life, but he changed like all of my friends' lives. Like it's like a very weird situation.
Mr. Brendan Shaw!
He's the Santa Claus of my world. Like I have a wife, I have 2 little kids. Like he's put me in a situation where I can like provide a great life for them.
As his rise became undeniable, the old kings of media finally took notice and began launching attacks. The kingdom of CNN struck, then the kingdom of SNL, then Jimmy Kimmel.
You're looking for advice from a former host of The Man Show? Call me next time.
Even the old king of the air, Howard Stern, the man that Joe once looked up to, went to war with him.
Howard Stern had an episode where he was mocking podcasts and saying, why don't you just yell out the window? No one's listening. He was like, you're wasting your time. And he was making fun of Adam Carolla for doing it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Making fun of people for doing it. There's a really disturbing video of Howard Stern from like 2013 that somebody leaked. And it's him giving some speech in front of all of his employees talking about getting the show to become more popular. This is what we have to do. And we have to get, X amount of celebrity. We need 2 A-list and 2 B-list a week. And I was like, wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like, oof, damn. And they're telling people to make fake Twitter profiles and tweet to celebrities and watch this. Like, God. As a person who's a gigantic fan of him growing up, it's like, I never thought he thought like that. I never thought anybody would do that. One of the best things about podcasting, at least with the way some people do it, is just authentic.
But like some kind of creature from Greek mythology, the more Joe was attacked, the stronger he became. Podcasting has somehow become the most effective way to scale parasocial relationships. The invisible bonds formed with podcast audiences are more powerful than anyone can truly understand. Joe realized this and started playing into it by inventing hangout podcasts, where he would literally hang out with his friends in an unstructured way and allow his audience to peek in and feel like they are part of his inner circle. The most popular sitcoms of the past touched on the hangout structure, but their versions seemed trite and artificial to what Joe created, and inspired other comedians to copy the format. And just like when a family member is attacked, when Joe Rogan is attacked, his audience comes to his aid, and the parasocial bond becomes stronger. Joe's rise in podcasting is a textbook example of what Charlie Munger called the Lollapalooza effect. People often attempt to reduce explosive success to 1 or 2 causes, when in fact, success is often the convergence of multiple positive variables all interacting with each other in the same direction.
Amazing how you can go through a modern textbook in psychology, whole damn 1,000 pages, and a subject that's been worked over by generations of academicians. You will not find people talking about the way that when you combine 4 or 5 psychological tendencies at once, you get a Lollapalooza effect. But it's a hugely important idea. Listen, Berkshire is a Lollapalooza effect. There are several factors that intertwine, all moving in the same direction. And of course, the other thing that was important was to synthesize psychology with all else. The trouble with the psychology profession is they don't know anything about all else. And you can't synthesize one thing you know with something you don't if you don't know the other thing. So that's why I came up with that Lollapalooza stuff. And by the way, I've been lonely ever since.
In the case of the JRE podcast, the factors for success were many. Joe's celebrity status at the time and undeniable charisma and working class relatability made him feel like that cool friend that we all wished we had. First mover advantage. In any white space, the first players have a massive advantage from just being there first. As one of the first in the space, Joe had a head start on all of the competition. I mean, imagine if Joe Rogan tried to launch a podcast now. It would never get any traction. There are far bigger celebrities and more charismatic people in the space now. But he had a head start, and a head start is a big advantage. The institutional rot of mainstream media created a lane for divergent voices, which is what the podcast specialized in. The fact that his podcast had a video component, which most podcasts didn't at the time, see Mark Maron and Adam Carolla, allowed it to be clipped into highly viral hot takes. The rise of YouTube, simultaneously with the rise of podcasting, created a platform for JRE clips. The YouTube algorithm was designed to optimize for curiosity, and JRE clips fed the algorithm exactly what it wanted. Exactly what we wanted. Joe's geographic location in Los Angeles gave him access to an infinite amount of interesting guests, from the Comedy Store specifically, and LA at large. His association with the UFC, conspiracy theories, fad diets, health hacks, and comedy created a swirling ecosystem of clips that flooded YouTube and became, in essence, thousands of crowdsourced commercials for his podcast. His courageous stand against Carlos Mencia cemented him as a hero of the comedy community and a champion of fairness. Social media and podcasting specifically unlocked the previously unknown power of parasocial relationships. The habitual cadence along with the intimacy of podcasting proved to be extremely effective in forming parasocial bonds. COVID created a perfect moment when parasocial relationships became a life raft for the lonely and isolated, and millions of young men specifically flocked to it. All of these factors combined together to make the JRE podcast massively popular through sheer serendipity.
Maybe you recognize you're onto something.
Nope. Definitely not.
Dude, I'm trying to help you out here, man.
Don't help me out. I'm telling you, it's not the case. It's just dumb luck.
He proved to be a modern-day Forrest Gump, an idiot savant, a drunken master, in his ability to fall backwards into one success after another. While the kings of Hollywood saw him as a threat and attacked him, the clever new kings of technology saw him as a potential ally. The kings of technology started a war for our attention. Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and others poured millions into hiring podcast mercenaries to fight for the eyes and ears of the plebeian masses. With billions at stake, Spotify made their move and got their mercenary.
Joe Rogan is signing a new deal with the audio streaming giant. The Wall Street Journal is saying it's valued at up to $250 million, which would be more than his prior deal, which was rumored at around $200 million.
The treasure he was paid by Spotify secured his position as a modern king of media. The young peasant who fought his way out of his working class roots and navigated gladiator arenas, stand-up comedy clubs, and Hollywood vampires. But in America, the rise of a king is only the beginning of the story. With billions of dollars at stake and the power to make or break careers, affect stock prices, and literally swing elections, Joe Rogan must now manage the juggernaut that he has accidentally created. His magical voice has created magical success. And with that success, a whole new set of problems has arisen.
They call this audience capture, though. Because these people are paying you, you're not necessarily thinking about what's true, you're thinking about what they want to hear.
They lose who they are and they become captive.
Yeah, like a caricature of yourself.
Yes.
For every kingdom, power breeds expectation.
Dana White made the Trump thing happen, for sure. He was trying to get me to have Trump on in like 2017. He called me up, the president wants to do your podcast. I go, you mean Trump? He tried to change the name of it. Wait, what are you doing, man? Why are you trying to get me in trouble?
Loyalty becomes currency.
When Joe Rogan posts a picture of elk meat, just go see who likes it.
Really?
Because it's the most bootlicking shit in the world. You're like, you fucking pussy.
Enemies multiply.
My theory about Rogan has always been that, to a large extent, he's in over his head. If you have a platform that big, the responsibility grows, whether you want it or not.
His rise has changed the media and media figures as a whole, and created an entirely new kind of game, which has attracted all types of new players.
Part of the problem is that so many of the lines are blurred, right? So you have comedians that are commentators, and commentators that are comedians, and politicians. So it's like, it's harder to get the defense of like, hey, I'm a comedian, leave me alone. All of these lines are blurring. Everybody's kind of everything now. People aren't in their lanes as much. This guy is dangerous because he's not just making a joke, he's doing something else.
Changing the zeitgeist, changing the
It absolutely
social
can
norms.
be. We're liars, we're narcissists, we're scumbags. Only a psychopath would look at us and go, show me the way.
I disagree with you. 'Cause
Well-
then I'm a psychopath. It's possible that humor is the very thing that saves the world. Humor is the very thing that is the balance of power in the world.
It might, but I think a lot of the things that those guys criticized, whether it was militarism.
This is a war of choice and a war of preemption.
The lying.
He killed himself.
The elites.
If we don't elect Trump, we will lose democracy in this country.
The corruption.
His coin is literally the democratization of kleptocracy.
The bribery.
And as Trump racks up trillions in deals from the Gulf states, all the Dems and media want to do is hound the prez over a luxury jumbo jet offer from Qatar.
Why wouldn't I accept the gift?
This isn't just his story anymore. It's all of ours. And just like the old king of influence, Johnny Carson, Joe must navigate the immense responsibility of having an endless parade of petitioners all seeking to appear on his show. Allies.
I can't overstate how much I love Joe and how much I admire him.
Opportunists.
How do you identify the psychopathic pretenders?
Mercenaries.
Who said that pacifism was supposed to be the definition of civility?
Pretenders to the throne.
And by the way, my book is coming out in December.
Prophets.
Such a crazy power that if you're not careful, folks from deep, dark wells of perspective are gonna infiltrate your shit. You have to watch out because people are gonna try to exploit you. That's the main thing, is people recognizing what you are, who have political agendas, will infiltrate your shit and then start blowing out their radioactivity into the world.
They orbit him now, each with their own ambition, each rewriting what the House of Rogan stands for and what it might become. And beyond the court walls, other kings have taken notice. Kings of commerce, kings of code, kings of empire. They whisper deals. They offer gold. As interesting as his rise has been, the politics and scheming of this strange new royal court is even more interesting, filled with an entire cadre of scheming characters, all looking to advance in the big game of influence. In the next episode, we will break down and categorize all of the characters that now jockey for position in the ever-changing House of Rogan, because this insane journey has just begun.
You also see that with people that switch political affiliations. They get lured into the